Nashville Public Radio serves Middle Tennessee in many ways, every day, including through this podcast. You can support it by leaving a review or rating, by telling a friend about it, or by contributing at WPLN.org/give.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's February 11th, 2026. On this day in 1978, China formally lifted the ban on books by many influential Western authors like Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, and Aristotle. A year and a half before that, Mao Zedong died, and with him, so did his cultural revolution. Allowing writings from other cultures was part of the next regime's attempts at modernizing, as China shifted from Mao's inward-looking separatist nation to a country with its sights set on global economic domination. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context. From Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. The way China's pendulum has shifted on Aristotle through the years is really interesting. In some ways, the Greek philosopher is the quintessential Westerner, given his extensive influence on all kinds of academic thought in Europe and the Americas. And China has a counterpoint to him in Confucius, also a philosopher, similarly influential in East Asia. Their approaches to thinking and reasoning are quite different, which is why Mao banned Aristotle. It's also why recent generations of Chinese academics wanting to understand and interact more with the West have shown a great interest in Aristotle specifically. And more broadly, it's why studies of classic Rome and Greece have become more popular in China in recent years. But in the last few years, there's been a new take on Mao's resistance to Aristotle. In 2023, videos started circulating on TikTok questioning whether Aristotle even existed. It's a handy way of undercutting arguments supporting the philosopher's ideas and of discouraging younger Chinese people from taking those thoughts seriously. You get the feeling the Aristotle was fake crowd would be happiest if China reinstated Mao's ban on anything Aristotle wrote. Which brings me to Middle Tennessee. Last week, while Nashville was thawing out from the ice, the library board in Rutherford County met to decide whether it should ban nearly 3,000 titles from its children's collection. Those are books that librarians pulled from the shelves late last year after receiving a rather intense letter from the state. The letter pointed to a White House executive order barring government support for what President Trump calls gender ideology and suggested the library could lose both state and federal funding if it didn't perform a prompt review of its children's books. The vibe of the message was very much, "We're watching you." But honestly, it's probably more meant as a nudge to board members who had already attempted to weed out books on transgender topics. Last year, that library system passed a book ban proposal, but then backed down out of fear that it would open them up to expensive First Amendment lawsuits. It had a money reason for not banning the materials. With its letter, the state formally delivered them a money reason to go ahead with that kind of move. At last week's meeting, the head of the library said her staff had conducted a thorough review of what was actually in those books that were pulled for possibly being at odds with the newest, most restrictive state and federal standards. Her recommendation to the board was that a handful of children's books be reclassified as young adult or adult, but said the staff found that most were completely appropriate for elementary readers. The board decided not to vote right away, but to take another month so its members could look more closely at the books themselves. In just a few minutes, this week's edition of What We're Wednesday is coming up after the newscast.
Best journalism in the nation. That's an apt description for a lot of what you hear on WPLN News. The proof this spring is in the array of journalism awards coming in. The Supermajority podcast won 3 national contests. Our investigative reporting, partnered with ProPublica, was named some of the best education coverage in the country. And for arts and culture, This Is Nashville and our music journalism are being honored on the national stage. We're proud, and you can be too.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. The Tennessee Valley Authority says it now wants to continue operating 2 coal-fired power plants that it had planned to close. The reverse decision caught many environmental groups by surprise. They criticized TVA for not giving public notice or asking for public input. TVA had intended to retire the Kingston fossil plant by the end of 2027. It also planned to shutter one of its units at the Cumberland fossil plant by the end of this year and a second unit in 2028. That was an effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute to climate change. The reason given by the utility yesterday is to keep up with the increased demand for power. A nonprofit environmental organization called Appalachian Voices calls the reverse decision salt in the wound after TVA ignored widespread calls for cleaner, cheaper replacements for the two plants. They added that the Cumberland coal unit failed during the 2022 winter storm and again last month during Winter Storm Fern. TVA is the nation's largest public utility. It partners with local power companies to serve nearly 10 million people in 7 states. LGBTQ advocates are worried about a slew of bills introduced during this year's legislative session. WPLN's Mariana Bacquiao reports on what's new this year in Tennessee.
Not a whole lot is actually new. A lot of the bills proposed this year expand previous bills aimed at LGBTQ Tennesseans. State law that allows teachers to ignore a student's preferred pronouns would expand to include honorifics like Mr. or Mrs. And the state's drag ban would expand the type of businesses that would be penalized under the law. Marcus Ellsworth with the Tennessee Equality Project says that the legislature wants to consider queer people obscene at a time when all people, regardless of gender or sexuality, are struggling.
What is actually obscene is that every year we have to watch our state prioritize wasting time, money, and resources fabricating ways to hurt us.
Other bills would ban the state government from acknowledging Pride Month and attempt to defy Supreme Court precedent by legalizing discrimination against LGBTQ people. Mariana Bacquiao, WPLN News.
Tennessee prison officials say contraband is flying into facilities via drones. They're asking for millions of dollars to help ward them off. Department of Correction Commissioner Frank Strada explained during a budget hearing yesterday.
Drones are now one of the most significant methods for contraband entering our correctional facilities by delivering drugs, weapons, and cell phones with precision and speed. Addressing this threat requires physical technology, but also intelligence-driven operations that allow us to detect, deter, and disrupt criminal activity before it endangers staff, inmates, or the public.
He and other top officials asked for about $2 million, which would pay for drone detection technology and AI-powered airspace monitoring. It's already a misdemeanor in Tennessee to fly drones in a prison's airspace, but lawmakers are considering a bill this year that would make it a felony. Their proposal also aims to protect prison guards from legal damages if they destroy the aircraft. Nashville leaders are aiming to help residents cut down on the costs of recovering from Winter Storm Fern. A release from Mayor Freddie O'Connell's office outlines the various plans. For property damaged in the storm, Metro Codes plans to waive permit fees. Additionally, there are plans to reassess the value of houses that were impacted by the storm, which could save homeowners on property taxes. On water bills, the mayor's office is pursuing an across-the-board reduction on bills through Metro Council. Metro Water will not disconnect customers this month, and those who experienced a leak or burst pipe that resulted in a higher bill can call Metro Water Services for an adjustment. And NES will pause all disconnections and late fees through June. Customers will have expanded access to flexible payment plans through December. To prepare for the next disaster, Nashvillians should be cooking more casseroles to take to their neighbors. That's the unofficial conclusion from panelists on our This Is Nashville episode about the emotional toll of the last few weeks. Anita Richardson is from Bordeaux.
I had one neighbor, she warms her home with wood. So she had told me before the storm, she said, if anything happens, lights go out, be sure you and the kids come to my house. I had another neighbor who has a generator who lives right behind me who said, just throw an extension cord. We got you.
I mean, we had congregants who went and stayed with each other, took generators to each other. It was easy because we were already so connected. We were already on a group text, It was as easy as a text.
Reverend Kate Fields is a pastor at St. Augustine on the Vanderbilt campus. The church had power throughout the storm and offered a warm place for people to sleep. Fields says there's great value in being part of a community, but says it's best if the connection comes before there's a crisis. And a correction to a story that we shared yesterday about NES storm damage. We named an incorrect company that worked as a storm contractor. The company was Sparta-based Upper Cumberland Utility Solutions. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Something about Shakespeare plays seems to work just right when you take those Elizabethan words and plots and slot them into a modern situation. Marquise can tell you about the latest twist on the Bard.
I'm Marquise Munson here with another edition of Nashville Public Radio's What Where Wednesday, keeping you up to date with the happenings in Nashville this week. Tonight, Nashville R&B artist Kylie performs at the Blue Room, and Miguel with Gene Dawson is at the Ryman. We're back at the Blue Room on Thursday for WNXP Trivia, and at 3rd and Lindsley on Friday, WNXP presents Say Shishi. For more events, head over to WNXP.org/events. This week for What Were Wednesday, we feature Fat Ham happening at TPAC this Friday through Sunday, February 22nd. Presented by Nashville Rep and the Nashville Shakespeare Festival, this Pulitzer Prize-winning play reimagines Shakespeare's Hamlet, centering on a young queer black man named Juicy who is visited by his father's ghost at a family barbecue and tasked with avenging his murder.
I'm Tamiko Robinson Steele. I am an actor in Nashville Rep's Fat Ham. My character is Tidra. She is the mother to the titular character, Juicy. Tidra is loud. There's a boldness to her. She's loud in more ways than one. But she's also someone who doesn't truly reveal herself. She's surviving in the world around her. You know, there was a moment in the show where someone asked her a question, and she has the opportunity to kind of pull back the mask and reveal any truth about herself. And the choice she makes kind of leaves you wanting, but then also it identifies the kind of character and person that this is.
I'm just saying, that way we can replace Juicy's tuition money and take that cruise, the Holy Land, your promise to take me on.
Tidra! I'm trying to focus.
I am also a Nashville local. It's so exciting to kind of be sharing that space in that type of way with the familiarity of the land and the art that we grew up in and how it's being reframed and shaped and that we're getting to explore all of these different themes that we've not seen a lot on stages in and around Nashville. So that's like really, really amazing. It's an all-Black cast. The director, he's a Nashville native. He's also Black. And that feels amazing because Fat Ham is rooted in a very specific cultural space, Black Southern family barbecue, and having an all-Black cast and a director, it kind of allows that world to feel fully lived in rather than explained. That freedom lets you play and go deeper and be more honest, and it also adds trust.
What did he say?
He's a freak!
He likes to freak! Mama freak! Oh, he's a freak! Oh!
It's absolutely fulfilling, but I'm going to be honest, the journey to get here was an uphill battle. I am a Black female actor in Nashville who doesn't sing well. So the roles were limited for myself. It took me about 15 years to get on the professional equity stages in Nashville. And I want to give a shout out to two of my really good friends, Mary McCallum, who has Sister Style Productions, and Sean Witzel, who has the Destiny Theater Experience. If it weren't for those two, I would not be the actor that I am today. They wrote, produced works that allowed me to be on full display, that allowed me to discover myself, that allowed the community to feel seen and represented. And so if it weren't for those two people with those two companies, I wouldn't have gotten the reps to be the actor that I am today. But yeah, like my first show at Nashville Shakespeare Festival, I was a countess, a princess of sorts. And I remember after that show, all these little Black girls came up to me and was like, "Oh my God, you were the princess." Like it meant so much to them to see themselves reflected on that stage. You know, when you haven't seen yourself represented in a space, sometimes it's hard to imagine being there. And so like I will happily carry that torch. And I try to pull as many people up with me and walk with me on this journey. I think it's a beautiful thing. I love art. I live art. And I've always innately known that this is the space that I was supposed to be in. What makes Fat Ham special is how quick it moves between humor and truth. It also feels very now. It's about identity, generational inheritance, and the possibility of choosing a different path. It's also a Pulitzer Prize-winning play. This is its regional premiere. It's a co-production with the Nashville Shakespeare Festival. It's first since 2005. And that alone makes it a special moment for Nashville theater.
For more information on Fat Ham and other events happening this week, visit WNXP.org. My name is Marquise Munson, and thank you for listening to another edition of What We're Wednesday.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday, so subscribe in your favorite podcasting app to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you like this, you'll probably enjoy the Nashvillager newsletter too. Look at Perspective for more of my colleagues at Nashville Public Radio and links to the stories we're following. Sign up for those daily emails at WPLN.org/Nashvillager. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.